Hey everyone, welcome back to Pretending with Dice. As always, I'm your host and game master, AJ. Well, this is it, the final episode of 2021. Whether you're new to the podcast or you've been with us from the beginning, thank you so much for joining us this year. COVID lockdowns really kind of messed with our planned schedule back at the beginning of the year, but I'm so happy we were able to get things all back on track and launch Frontier. I hope you've all been enjoying our trip to the stars with this new series. We're having so much fun playing Star Trek Adventures, and we're not about to stop yet. This episode, however, is kind of a mini finale. Not for the series, but just for our first big storyline of Frontier, Aurora. We had a lot of fun recording the story. I think you'll all enjoy this conclusion to it. I want to thank you all for your patience as well in waiting an extra week for it. We will, of course, be back in the new year with the next storyline of Frontier, Fire of the Gods, which will begin promptly on January 6th. Before we get straight into this episode, however, I do just want to make one quick announcement, and that is that we have a brand new, easier way to get to everything to do with the podcast, and that is pretendingwithdice.com. Couldn't be simpler. All the links to our social media pages, Discord server, Ko-Fi page, as well as direct links to the podcast feed, and pages on some of the most popular podcast apps are on there, so check it out. Tell your friends, share the podcast. It's never been easier. Okay, with all that out of the way, I want to wish all the best for the holiday season to each and every one of you, and we'll see you in 2022. But first, let's get into today's episode. Enjoy.
Previously on Frontier.
Come.
Okay, well, as you know, the sensor suite just got a couple of upgrades, and, well, there hasn't really been a chance to point at anything weird yet.
Sure, I'll take it to the captain and see what he says.
Captain, we've found some interesting readings. We've found dilithium and a tritanium signature.
System's meant to be uninhabited, isn't it, Commander Ray?
Yes, sir. No intelligent life on any of the planets in this system, according to previous reports.
Probably would recommend only a short away mission, sir.
You got my blessing with that. Put together a team.
Energize.
Do we have any idea what we might find here?
We're looking for the source of the dilithium and tritanium signatures detected from orbit, Ensign.
Stop freaking out.
There's a spot further down the hill, about 100 meters or so. Let's get some shelter at least.
We begin to hear, unmistakably, an animal call.
Eyes up.
At the firing of your phaser.
Oh, fuck. I forgot about that.
Two of the barbs just go straight into your arm. One hits you in the side of the neck, and one final one just goes straight into your cheek.
Oh.
Your right arm and the right side of your face immediately go completely numb.
It seems that they have the ability to see potentially on the infrared spectrum. So what I'm thinking, we've got the pattern enhancers with us. If we set them up and adjust the field to mask our heat signatures while we're inside it, it might prevent them from detecting us.
You nail your shot on the creature you were aiming at, just blasting it with like a pinpoint phaser strike. Johnny, as you go to fire, the creature you're aiming at suddenly leaps towards you, and your phaser blast goes wide. So wide, in fact, that it strikes one of the three pattern enhancers, which immediately, under the force of the phaser blast, detonates. Time seems to slow as this large predator springs through the air in your direction, and then it drops, a dead weight crashing to the ground at the threshold of your survival tent. A long, thin, metallic projectile, clearly visible protruding from the creature's skull, directly between the eyes, now dead, and staring up at nothing.
Ooh. Oh.
All of this action seems to be happening at once. Murphy's on-target shot at the first of the hunting creatures, Johnny's shot missing, and the subsequent explosion of one of the pattern enhancers, and finally the pouncing of the second creature towards your tent, intercepted in mid-air by a projectile from out of your field of view. With the rain pounding down, this now dead creature sort of slides to a stop in the mud, an arrow shaft protruding from between its eyes, coming to a rest just at your feet, Johnny. Well, actually, I guess, are you on your feet? Are you kneeling in the tent's entrance?
If memory serves, we were kind of kneeling. I think I was alongside Murphy firing.
Yeah. So it just sort of slides in the mud to a stop, just in front of you, with this quite long-shafted arrow sticking out of the centre of its forehead. Its eyes are just sort of staring up at you, but they're clearly like they're not moving. It's just like dead stare at you.
Okay. Well, Johnny's immediate reaction is to eyes bulge, stare at the beast for a split second, and then immediately snap his head around to try and catch a glance at where that arrow's come from.
Okay. Well, from where you're sat in the entranceway, it hasn't. The tent is kind of blocking most of your field of view. You can't see anything from the angle that you're at, though. It looks to be, and especially with the angle of the arrow, it's come from over the tent and hit it, basically. I'll give you that for free.
Murphy, we've got company. And Johnny kind of hops up to his feet and wheels around to try and look in the direction, or to try and get a better view now of what's happening, or where that arrow's come from.
Okay, can I get an insight security check from you? It's a difficulty 1.
Yeah, I've got 1.
That's 1 failure, 1 success. All right. So you stand up out of the tent doorway, kind of revealing yourself, and you see crouched on the sort of the rim of this kind of hollow in the ground, with a sort of hooded kind of cloak pulled up over their head against the wind and the rain, and holding what looks to be a kind of makeshift. Well, not really makeshift. It looks pretty sturdy and, well, quite professional, actually. A bow. It appears to be a humanoid figure. Tough to make out details, but they're kind of looking down at you. But yeah, where it's kind of dark and raining and windy, it's a bit tough to tell anything other than it appears to be a person.
Johnny pulls his head back into the tent and turns to Murphy and says, it looks like there's a person out there. Somebody's wielding a bow and arrow, but I guess maybe they're on our side if they're fighting this thing. And he kind of looks around to everybody else, gauging reaction.
They just saved our bacon, so the least we can do is offer a hello.
Can I try and get a sense of this person's attitude towards us?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
With my empathy.
Yeah, I guess do a. I guess this will be insight security. I guess. Yeah, this is kind of your thing, though. So I mean, this would be a difficulty 1 again. So 2d20, and you're aiming to get 14 or under. Again, 1 success, 1 failure, but that's fine. You got the 1 success. There's definitely like a level of kind of adrenaline rush going on, which you would maybe put down to like making the difficult shot there, but you're getting more of a kind of feeling of like curiosity, but also sort of surprise, not lack of recognition of anything that they're seeing, but just sort of a little bit of like so it's like a mix of confusion and curiosity sort of thing. Okay. You would put that maybe down to surprised at seeing people, basically.
Okay. I'm not sensing any outright hostility. They're surprised. They weren't really sure what we are, why we're here. But just remember that if they get surprised, they might lash out.
Then we take it slow.
Yes.
Alright. Arila, come with me. I want you two to keep a watch on our backs. Unless I give a signal, nobody shoots.
I will follow orders, and Johnny's, as ever, ready with weapons, but beyond that.
Alright, Murphy's gonna head out with the doctor and slowly approach. She's gonna put her phaser away and slowly approach with her hands raised, minding that it's raining and just being like, yeah, it's raining.
Yeah.
Hi.
The darkness out here is all. It's almost like it's nighttime kind of thing, but you know from the time of day that it was that you've been down that this is this is 100% down to it being the storm above really raging and blocking out all of the sunlight. It's not pitch black, but the main source of lighting, other than the burning transport pattern enhancer, and I guess did you guys have a light on in the tent? I would assume some sort of light.
Makes sense.
I'd imagine so,
Yeah. That you're the main source of light here, other than the now very frequent flashes of lightning kind of from all directions. And as you sort of take a few steps forward, this figure hasn't really moved, but you can tell they're kind of watching you. You still get this kind of just sort of feeling of curiosity now. As you take a step closer, their face beneath the hood is lit by a fairly close flash of lightning. You can see they appear to be a human in their late teens. It's tough to gauge exactly, partly down to the sort of rough kind of bits of sort of mud camouflage that they seem to have sort of daubed onto their face and onto their clothing. But you would guess just from their kind of general size and from what you can make out in this sort of low, harsh lighting, they could be anywhere from 15 to 20 years old, something like that.
Murphy's gonna realise this and be like, oh, right. Hi.
They just kind of seem to sort of regard you for a second before replying. Hello?
Hello. Please, thank you, firstly, but please, come in to the tent. If we promise, we're from Starfleet. We're on a reconnaissance mission investigating a dilithium signature. We assumed it might have been a ship. Who are you?
He's kind of looking back and forth between the pair of you and the tent, where I would assume Johnny and Ray are keeping a close eye on proceedings. I'm Jovar. You're new here.
I am new. I'm Lieutenant Commander Murphy. This is Dr. Aurora. Over there we have Ensign Conhart, and over here we have Lieutenant Commander Ray.
Tenen was a lieutenant commander. He glances up at the sky at the sound of a quite close lightning strike. We ought to get back. The storm's getting worse.
There's more of you. How many more?
3 others. They're back at the house.
You have a house?
Yeah, it's where we live. We ought to go. Come on.
Connor, pack up the tent.
Aye, sir.
We're moving out. Murphy's
I'd rather
really
think-
curious.
I rather think it's going to take more than one person, Lieutenant Commander.
True.
I'll assist the ensign.
Connor was
Thank you,
grimacing
Ray.
at the order to begin with, and has visibly relaxed a little bit now that he's got some help.
What are you doing with the pattern enhancers?
Oh yeah, I'll go in.
One of them's on fire.
Oh,
Are they any good with one of them gone?
You need 3, I think.
Yeah, no, they're not great with just one. With one broken, but
we might have use for it for something else though. So
There's a lot
And
of rain. Is it still on fire?
it's hissing a lot. It's just kind of going out. It kind of exploded. I mean, Johnny shot it with the phaser.
Yeah, so I'm helping the ensign pack up the tent.
Okay.
Yeah.
All this time, Jovar's he's looking around, and he's not like, again, really, you're not really getting a kind of a scared vibe off of him. He's now just kind of, his looking around is, you get the feeling he's almost kind of watching the surroundings. He's wary of the 4 of you, because as I said, you're new, but it's more, yeah, like I said, like awareness of the forest, and if anything else is out there, maybe he's keeping an eye out for more of the predator creatures. You're not sure, but he's just kind of, he's not like keeping eye contact. He's kind of constantly looking around.
Aurora turns to the newcomer. Is it far to your house?
Not too far. Maybe half an hour away. This weather will slow us down, though. I haven't seen a storm this bad before.
Okay, we'll be ready to leave soon. And she glances back towards the tent.
These okay, so Starfleet tents and things. It's all designed to be put up quickly and I guess packed away quickly, just for expediency's sake here. I would imagine this is part of the part of standard training is quick deployal. Is that a word? It is now. Deployment of the equipment. Proper use of the equipment. I guess this is kind of your job to be able to do this stuff. So
I feel like Johnny's probably checked supplies of this at some point, or been forced to, and that this is going to be familiar to him.
Yeah, with the thought of maybe being on an away mission one day, Johnny has fully versed himself, probably more than he needed to in the use of this equipment. Is that? I was
thinking as much that it would be that he's been ordered to count these things and check that they're all there and that kind of stuff, and that he's had to put them together and break them back down again and make sure they're all in working order. And
makes sense
on that basis. He knows his stuff.
Commander is a harsh mistress.
So you are able to very quickly put your stuff away. So any amount of drying from the heater is now completely wasted, as you are now all stood out in the rain. But the tree canopy is doing quite a lot, but it's very windy and like there's nowhere dry really to hide here. Yeah,
the quicker we start moving, the better.
I'm trying to think. I swear that they're not like Starfleet issue cagoules or something.
I mean,
there's jackets or something. We have them.
You brought survival equipment with you,
so we're not dressed in just like the standard on-ship uniform right now.
Yeah, you could bust out ponchos if you want.
100%. Yeah. I should have probably thought of that earlier, but
I will happily don my space poncho.
Yeah. I believe when you were getting ready for the mission, all-weather equipment was sort of one of the things we put forward. So I think we can kind of assume you guys brought some jackets with you.
I've just got this vision of us all trying to brave the storm and wearing those on-ship uniforms.
Oh god, just walking around with super waterlogged cotton uniforms.
Arms clasped around ourselves as we huddle and stumble across awkward sets.
Just absolutely drenched. We could probably even backpedal it a little bit and say that as soon as it started raining earlier on, you probably brought those out. Especially probably when you were out keeping watch, and Ray was modifying the pattern enhancer last time.
Yeah, I imagine I'd have had something to keep me dry while I was doing that.
Yeah, I feel like that's a fairly harmless retcon to be that you guys put your jackets on. Yeah.
Cool. On our way then.
Sorry.
Thank you.
That's good. Yeah, good point to make. Okay, so you give the nod that you're ready to head off, and the boy, Jovar, quickly turns and leads the way into the forest. He's setting a pretty decent pace. You're able to keep up, but it is a little quicker than you were moving earlier before you encountered the hunting creatures. You get the feeling he's used to moving through this terrain, through these woods and whatnot. He seems to know where he's going pretty well.
Johnny's going to try and keep pace.
Okay.
If that's the case.
Yeah.
And try and keep close to him.
Sure.
If he's taken any unusual routes that perhaps everybody else might not be able to take, under or over things, he's trying to copy that.
Okay, so you're trying to parkour your way through this forest.
To some extent.
Oh dear.
Okay, I wasn't going to make it a check to keep up with him, but you've said you're trying to take unusual routes, so can I get I guess this would be, fitness security. Pretty good for you, that's 15 or under.
What difficulty is it?
Difficulty 2, let's say. I'm not going to have you fall unless you get a complete failure. Okay, yes, that's 2 successes, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the boy isn't really, he's not doing flips off of things or anything like that. But he's clearly quite at home in the forest, even during the storm sort of thing. And yeah, you're able to sort of watch where he's stepping and keep pace pretty well. Yeah, the rest of you're still able to keep up, but Johnny's doing the whole kind of running up branches and things. not into the trees or anything, but you're sort of you're doing the best job at keeping up with him, let's say.
There is kind of a conscious attempt to take in his awareness of the surroundings on a level of what's the lay of the land, how does it work, this guy seems to know, what can I learn from the route that he's taking. That kind of stuff is consciously being thought about what he's doing.
Sure.
I was just going to add that Murphy is probably feeling maybe slightly sluggish still from the barbs, so I'd imagine she'd probably be in the middle somewhere just going, oh, yay, yay, come on, I can move,
Yeah.
yay, but it's so stiff.
Yeah, you're not really keeping the sort of pace that Johnny's doing here, but yeah, you're able, as I say, as a group you're able to keep up fine and that and everything. It's just a little bit quicker than the immediate sort of expedition pace you were keeping earlier on.
Aurora would probably be keeping an eye on his emotional state as we go along, just to check for anything that might suggest that walking us into a trap or danger of some kind.
Sure. Okay, can I get another insight security from you then? 17 and 8, so basically it's a very similar result to before. Yeah, 1 success. I mean, you mostly what you're picking up is still no hostility really to nothing towards you guys at all. There's that sort of level of awareness is still there from before of his surroundings, and a sort of focus on sort of what it's a very kind of, you're getting the feeling that it's very kind of an in the moment sort of thing, that at all points he's sort of keeping track of what's around him, and that is, and not so much thought as to, like, you know, he's not kind of, his mind isn't wandering and thinking about, you know, things that may happen in the future really. The most that you get towards that, though, is the further you're going on, there is a kind of building sense of sort of, not quite relief, but a little bit sort of anticipation, you guess, sort of related to getting back towards home, the house, as he put it, with in quite a dangerous storm. You know, he's, so the anticipation is, we're nearly, you would interpret it as like we're nearly back kind of relief feeling more than anything else. So, you've been travelling for, you think, about 40 minutes. It's a little tricky to keep track of the time during this sort of hike through the darkness. And you notice the trees begin to thin out a little bit more. And suddenly, before you know it, you're reaching the edge of the dense forest that you've been travelling through. As you leave the trees behind, not only are you buffeted more and more by the wind and rain now that you're out of cover, but you're treated to probably your first proper view in a long time of a sort of wide, full landscape, which is being dramatically lit by a lightning storm of incredible proportions. From horizon to horizon, you can see hundreds of lightning flashes happening, and above you the thick, dark clouds are sort of churning with the power of this storm. Jovar leads the way towards a group of sort of earthen mounds and a sort of large, what looks like a soaring kind of rocky outcropping that's visible a sort of short distance away from the edge of the forest. He's still kind of keeping up his kind of sort of confident, fast pace, which, yeah, you're still able to match, but yeah, he's not really slowing up. Just before you reach this landmark, however, the sky directly above you is split by a massive flash of lightning, which strikes the central pillar of this rocky outcropping, which is towering sort of maybe 50 to 60 metres high above you. The strike illuminates the whole landmark, and you can see that what you first took to be a particularly tall rock formation, it simply can't be that. The straight lines and sort of symmetrical structure are unmistakably manufactured. A second strike from behind you lights up the formation again, and you start to kind of put together what you're seeing. This is a ship's warp nacelle embedded in the ground at maybe a 60 to 70 degree angle. Not as big as the ones on the Tenzing by any stretch, but of a sort of familiar looking design. Definitely you can see what it is, sort of thing. Jovar points ahead to another rise a little distance away. That's the ridge. We're nearly there. Come on.
Thank you. Yeah, let's try and get there as quick as we can. I don't particularly want to be struck by lightning too.
I'm going to take out a tricorder and scan it as we're walking past.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, see if I can pick up any readings or markers that might identify exactly what it came from, what ship it came from, or...
Sure, can I get a reason science check? I'm going to say difficulty 2. for that specific thing of figuring out what ship it came from or whatever. But I will give you some information on it if you get one success.
Okay.
Just not the full thing.
Here we go.
10 and a 1. Well, that's a critical and another success, so that's 3 successes. I have thrown out the piece of paper that I had written down how much momentum you guys have had on, but it goes down after scenes, so
Yeah.
I will. You've
I think
generated.
we used a few.
You did, yes, yeah. I think you were down. Were you down to 2 or down to 3?
I think we're down to 2
Down
at
to
the
2.
time.
Okay. And now we've kind of moved on as you've kind of been walking for quite some time. So let's say we're still at 2 then, because you would have lost 1 at the end of that scene, and you've just regained 1 by getting 1 more success than you needed. Okay. Woo! Woo! We're still at 2.
Better than nothing.
Maintaining. So a quick tricorder scan then confirms that this is definitely made of tritanium. More specifically, a tritanium alloy that was used in the construction of Federation starships from the late 23rd century until probably about 30 years ago, and it's been sort of superseded by more recent developments in material sciences. It's not completely out of use. There's definitely some older ships still flying that make use of this particular alloy, but it's sort of no longer used in constructing new ones. Definitely a Federation manufacture, though.
Fascinating. And then looks over and realises he's fallen behind the others a little bit, so then closes up the tricorder and begins to try and catch them up.
You travel again in silence for about another 5 minutes, I'd say. Actually, Ray, you're able to catch up, but yes, you were in danger of being left behind as you stopped for a scan. You crest the ridge that Jovar has led you to and look down into a shallow, fairly narrow valley in the surface of the plain. Jovar points down into it. There's the house. Come on. Following where he indicates, you can just about make out, down in the valley itself, at the far end, a structure of some sort, about 100-150 metres away from you. It's tough to make out details through the rain and the darkness, but there are some telltale lights visible shining from it, and you can see it's clearly not a natural formation.
Oh, let's get in the dry then.
Are we close enough for me to try and get a read on the other 2 people that previously are here?
Not really close enough, no. I would say, just for clarification as well, he had said there was 3 others. Sorry.
3 others, right.
So with him, that's 4, is it?
Yeah, him, and he said there were 3 others back at the house.
Okay. So there's him and 3 others, which makes a party of 4.
Yeah. It's a little more kind of sheltered down in this sort of valley depression, and as a result, the structure isn't getting lit by so much of the lightning as the other things were. If it wasn't for the lights kind of visible on it, it'd definitely be easy to miss. Jovar leads you down into the depression along what you quickly realise is a path that's been cut into the side of the valley itself, leading down to the bottom. And although you're still exposed to the rain, the wind itself isn't nearly as bad down here as it has been since you left the forest. He leads you along the valley towards the structure, picking up his pace a little as he approaches. Aurora, you can feel a sort of sense of sort of warm anticipation from him that you would interpret as pleasure at returning home. As you all get a little closer, you can see that the building is of metal construction, similar in kind of look and patina to the warp nacelle that you saw previously. It's about 3 stories high and appears to be kind of partially embedded into the earth at the end of the valley itself. The lower of the 3 stories has sort of earth and soil heaped around it on either side, but all of it, this doesn't look like it's been recently churned up. There's plant growth snaking up onto the side of the structure, and from this, I mean, obviously limited by the view, limited by the weather kind of view that you've got of it, it does look to have been here for quite some time.
Murphy's gonna glance around and then look behind them and then try and look like around the structure and be like, this is the crashed ship.
You know what I said about maybe finding lost ships? I hate it when I'm right.
I wouldn't hate it since we're about to rescue 4 people.
Well, we knew there had to be a source of the dilithium signal.
How long have they been here?
Based on the scan I took of the titanium structure back there, this ship has definitely got to be somewhere in the region of maybe 40 to 50 years old, if not more. So potentially, they may be the descendants of crash landing survivors.
At this point, the boy he reaches a doorway, which now you can see it is an exterior airlock, standard design. Still, there's identical airlocks on the Tenzing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Which he pulls open manually. It doesn't appear to have power, and kind of beckons you inside. There is light coming from the inside, but it's this airlock itself doesn't seem to be powered in any way.
Jovar, how long have you all been here?
Well, I've always been here.
And how old are you?
I'm 19.
All right.
I think my parents and Tanen weren't always here, though. They don't really like to talk about it.
All right. You might want to introduce us first and prepare them. We'll wait in the doorway here, out of the rain.
Okay. I'm sure they'll be happy to see you, though.
Yeah, they might be. But also, it's a little polite. We're imposing on your home, so it's just manners, just polite manners.
Okay, sure. He turns to open the inner airlock hatch, but as he reaches for it, it's pulled open from the inside, and the doorway is filled first with light, but then with the almost silhouetted form of an older, bearded human man. You'd put him somewhere in his mid-50s, maybe.
Son, what did I tell you about going out there? This ain't no regular storm. You could have gotten hurt.
It's then that he clocks the four of you standing there behind Jovar and just sort of stares wide-eyed for a moment.
Who are you?
Hello,
Angela looks over at the people we've just kind of landed on. We are members of Starfleet, and we were sent to investigate a dilithium signal. Jovar was kind enough to help us out when he came upon us unexpectedly.
He's sort of shaken off his kind of momentary shock at seeing you all and steps forward to clasp you by the hands.
Starfleet. We've been here for so long, we'd given up on being found.
Puts his hand on Jovar's shoulder.
I'm Ensign William Lance of the USS Tier. Well, what's left of it. You met my boy here, Jovar. It's good to see all of you.
Can Irila get a read on his reaction? Is he being genuine?
Sure, yeah. I'll do an insight security again. This will only be difficulty 1. Well, that's a success and a critical fail. I mean, I don't know possibly how this would go wrong, but I mean, I'll just have that generate some threat. That's a 20 and a 9. You're okay. Here's what I'll say then. So he definitely seems genuine, but you're kind of caught by surprise a little bit by, especially when he grabs your hand, sort of how overwhelmingly relieved he sort of feels, and it sort of takes you a little bit by surprise and sort of seems to drown out any other senses. You're not sensing this as malicious in any way, but yeah,
a bit overwhelming.
Yes, it's a bit overwhelming, but he seems genuine.
In that case, Irila will just smile at him.
Come on, come in out of the cold and wet. Looks awful out there. I told Jovar to make sure he was back before the storm hit.
I was out hunting. I lost track of time. Sorry, Dad.
They're kind of coming in and drying, like, I assume we're taking off our wet weather gear and what have you.
Yeah.
Johnny kind of remarks to him and says, "It's a good thing that he was out hunting, because he saved my bacon. Your son there's a great shot."
He just kind of looks at his son with sort of a look of, you get a feeling of genuine kind of warmth of his sort of, like, proud of his son kind of thing. He doesn't really say anything. He just sort of, you're sensing the concern, about he didn't want his son to go out, but he's proud that his son was able to help you out.
Johnny kind of looks to the son and smiles and nods a little bit.
Yeah, because I guess Johnny's really only a few years older than the son of his.
That's
19.
it. There's a certain amount of, like, he appreciates the kid's skill. He saw the way he moved through the forest.
Yeah.
He wants to see that that's acknowledged. He doesn't want to see his dad, like, taking him down a notch.
Little camaraderie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you finally step into the ship's hull proper. And although what you're in is recognisable as a ship's corridor of Starfleet manufacture, now that you know what you're looking for, it's also clear that this has been here for quite some time and has basically been fully converted into a home, a dwelling of some sort. It's not the clean and clear sort of sterile corridors that you'd find on a working Starfleet vessel. There doesn't appear to be much in the way of electrical power working. There's not none, but all of the screens and panels in the walls appear to be inoperative, and really maybe only 1 in every 5 or 6 lighting panels seems to be working, although they're not like flickering or anything. They are on.
They've been hot wired.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. You'd imagine they've maybe done quite well to get it working as well as they have, sort of thing.
Mr. Lance, thank you for inviting us in. Jovar mentioned that there were 3 others plus him. Does that mean that you are not the only survivor from the crash of the ship?
Yeah, that's right. There's myself, Jovar, my wife Sarah, and Tanin. We're all that's left. We weren't the only ones to survive the crash, but a couple didn't last long after it, and the others unfortunately fell victim to various mishaps over the years. As I said, we've been here for some time. Come on, dinner should be ready soon. Let's sit down upstairs. We'll tell you the whole story.
He leads the way through the corridors, up a set of spiralling wooden stairs that seem to have been built into what was once a turbolift shaft, and finally into a large open-plan room with a sturdy-looking wooden table and chairs in the centre of it. It's lit with a mixture of candles and a few lighting panels that the survivors have managed to get working, and you realise this room was once the ship's bridge. As you enter, you hear a woman's voice calling from the next room. William, is that Jovar back? I'm just about done cooking. A human woman, also you'd say probably in her 50s, enters from another door carrying a large serving bowl of food. As she clocks your presence, she gasps and nearly drops the bowl. What? Who?
Sarah, Jovar found these folks out in the storm. They're from Starfleet.
That's right. We've come from the USS Tenzing.
Is your ship in orbit now?
Yes.
Yeah. She looks to her husband. William, they can't be up there now.
Is there a reason why they can't?
The planet's magnetic field. It's in flux when the sun reaches solar maximum. We couldn't predict it. It's what caused our ship to crash 28 years ago. The variances, they're so subtle our sensors didn't register them at first, and, well, before we knew it, our orbit had decayed. The tear just fell out of the sky. Is that why you're here? To watch the solar storm?
Well, yes, we came to observe the Aurora, but while we were in orbit we detected dilithium and tritanium signatures, and we were sent down to investigate.
I just hope your ship has a hell of a pilot. It was too late for us to save the tear by the time we realised what was happening. William and I were the helmsman and navigator. We did our best, but, well, there were 45 crew before the crash. 8 survived.
Well, after the storm, we'll be back in contact with her.
Assuming they don't fall into the same trap.
Hopefully the issue won't be too taxing on the new sensors.
I just hope that's the case.
If we're on board a ship at the moment, a crash ship, obviously systems pretty badly damaged and whatnot. Is it worth us attempting to get a message up to the Tenzing using instruments on the ship to boost the signal through the storm? Because our communicators probably wouldn't be strong enough on their own, but now we're on board a ship.
We could probably retrofit some stuff and
got a bit stronger broadcast ability, even though the tech's older. It'll definitely be a lot stronger than our comm badges. Maybe we should check in with the Tenzing and make sure they're aware of the situation.
Yeah, we need to check. We've been trying to. Well, Murphy's been trying to hail them, with our comm badge, and when they were back in the tent, and they still haven't had contact. And we were supposed to have hourly checkups, but we couldn't because of the interference. But yeah, definitely we should, if it's possible, try and do something like that.
If you think that'll work, we haven't been able to send a proper transmission since the crash. Nearly all of the Tier's complex electronic systems were fried by the storm when we were coming down, and a lot of what was left was destroyed in the impact itself.
We don't need to talk, we just need to send a signal. So even if it's Morse code, as long as we can get, somebody's going to notice.
I think we could probably send through Morse code as a bit signal. If we can effect at least a basic repair on the communications array, perhaps we could hardwire one of our comm badges into it and then use the tapping frequency to send a message over subspace up to the Tenzing. That should be able to break through the storm.
That's a good thought, but the comms array was part of the ship's lower structure,
which is
basically gone. It took the worst of the impact. The upper section of the ship sheared off, and, well, we managed to turn it into this, but as for the rest of it, afraid there's not much but a bunch of twisted metal at the other end of the valley.
We were lucky to survive at all. You're inside pretty much all that's left of the USS Tyr, Oberth-class starship. May she rest in peace. Still, what better place to ride out this planet's once-in-a-generation storms? Been grounded, one way or another.
Thank you for taking us in, and I'm sorry it's taking so long for us to find you.
We've not expected rescue for some time, especially not without a working beacon. Tenen tried to build a short-range radio some time ago, but it didn't come to anything.
Well, we'll get Ray to have a look at it and see if some of our brains can cobble together a plan. Or we'll just wait out the storm and wait for communications to clear up enough that we can get a message.
Well, we've been here 28 years. What's another couple of days? She reaches out and takes her husband's hand and sort of gives it a squeeze.
Don't worry, we'll get you off this rock.
Jovar, why don't you go tell Tenen that dinner's ready? I'm sure he'll be excited to meet our new visitors.
Jovar nods and leaves the room. You all take seats around the table, and the boy returns shortly, helping along a grey-haired Vulcan man. It's tough to gauge ages with Vulcans, but this one looks to be a little bit on the older side. He takes a seat at the table and sort of helps himself to some food, slowly looking around at each of you as he does before raising an eyebrow.
Took them long enough.
He chooses food thoughtfully for a couple of seconds.
Jovar, I would be most obliged if you could help me gather my belongings before our departure.
Jovar looks a little confused. Yeah, but where are we going? He looks up at his parents and to all of you.
Well, son, we can go anywhere. We can go to Earth. We can see where our family's from. We can finally leave.
Jovar kind of frowns, not in full confusion, but more that the idea of leaving this place, going or even being anywhere else wasn't really a thing that he'd ever considered before, if that makes sense. But we live here.
You could come back here at some later point if you wish. Coming onto our ship doesn't mean that you would be staying there forever.
What's a ship?
Think of it like your house.
Just looks at the three adults that raised him really? Are you kidding me here?
We did our best to teach Jovar about the Federation and such when he was young. About how this used to be a starship, but frame of reference is everything. None of our computers work. We couldn't even show him images of what we're talking about. he's only ever known this world. Over time, the tier had just become the house, and I guess all that other stuff just wasn't important anymore. We had our lives here to live.
The inside of our ship is bigger than your home. Quite a bit bigger than your home. But it travels. It can travel between different worlds. That also means that the people who are on it can make decisions about which world to be in. Well, you would have a choice about it. The rest of us signed up for Starfleet. But I'm sure that arrangements could be made.
The Vulcan, Tenen, speaks up at this point.
To return to Vulcan would be most agreeable. The humidity of this planet can be uncomfortable, especially in the summer months. To see my family once again would also be most agreeable.
He hasn't really looked up from his food. He's just kind of stoically he's kind of acknowledged, okay. As if there wasn't really a doubt that you were going to be rescued, that they were going to be rescued. It's just like he's just, okay, here we go. Right, finally, sort of thing. Yeah. But tough to read though, Vulcans. Let's sort of fade through the evening then. The four of you enjoy a delicious meal of local produce around the table with the four survivors here. And throughout the evening, you're sort of told the full story of the USS Tyr and its crew. You learn that the ship was on a kind of general survey mission in this sector when they stopped off in this system at the request of the ship's scientists to observe the star's solar maximum, in a kind of eerie mirror to your own arrival in the system. William and Sarah again describe how they tried to save the ship even as it plunged through the atmosphere to its doom, how they were the only two crew on the bridge to survive, how over the years their small group of originally 8 was whittled down. The ship's doctor, having survived the crash, died a couple of weeks later from their wounds, and a patient they were caring for shortly after. Several months later, another survivor was attacked and killed by one of the same type of creatures that had earlier been hunting your group. William has named these creatures Rippers. 2 others also died in the intervening nearly 3 decades, leaving of the original survivors only Lieutenant Commander Tenen, the ship's chief engineer, Ensign William Lands, helmsman, and Ensign Sarah Franks, navigator. They all made as good a life for themselves as they could, marooned on this world. Sarah and William having a son together, Jovar, a decade after the crash.
I'd imagine we would be sharing the updates of what's happened.
Yes.
In their absence as well, like the Dominion War and and the wormhole, the discovery of the wormhole and the loss of Voyager. And
yeah, there's a lot of questions which you hadn't expected, like what's a Ferengi and
what are the Borg?
Yeah, there's a lot to be caught up on. They crashed 28 years ago, which I believe would put that about we're in 2378, aren't we? So that's about 13-14 years even before the start of TNG in the timeline.
Yeah. Oh god.
So there's a lot of stuff they've not heard of before. And
so I imagine the crew of this ship were probably in the kind of the red and black uniforms.
No sign of any of that anymore, though. They seem to be wearing kind of homespun gear and that, but bits of it kind of showing being patched together out of whatever uniform stores were left on board and such. But they very much need a lot of catching up on the comings and goings of the galaxy. Okay, so inevitably then, as talk turns to what is coming next then, there's a decision to be made. You can either hunker down and just sort of wait out the storm, or you could maybe take a look at the short-range radio that was mentioned earlier on.
I don't see why we can't do both.
Yeah, we should try to fix the see what we can do with the radio. It's not necessarily fixed, but
I mean, we'll still be waiting technically while we're trying this retrofit.
Yeah, it's a use of our time while we're waiting.
It's a lovely way to spend an afternoon.
I don't see much harm in trying.
Yeah, I mean, we're Starfleet. We love to tinker while we wait.
Exactly. I mean, it might be a good idea also to see if one of us can effect a repair on the busted pattern enhancer. While we're on the ship.
If they have anything that we can retrofit to fix it as well.
I'm going to be real with you. That's not getting fixed.
No. Or if they've got any in storage somewhere.
Or do they have any?
A good amount of it's missing.
Right.
And burned and melted.
As Johnny's sat there with everybody, he's thinking about the fact that he shot the pattern enhancer and is feeling kind of stupid about it. He looks over to Tenen and says, do you have anything like a pattern enhancer aboard? Any equipment along those lines?
Possibly. It has been some time since I checked the transporter room stores. A room that was never going to be used for its original purpose again, without proper power and maintenance.
Well, we've got a portable generator with us in the survival stuff. Have we not?
No, and you do, but you can't run a transporter room with it.
Would it necessarily be the transporter room, or would we be able to take components, or... I mean, really, ideally...
I mean, you don't need the generator for the pattern enhancers. If there's a pattern enhancer sort of thing in there, you could,
We just wait for the Tenzing to be able to pick us up, and then they'll beam us up from their end.
But the portable generator you have with you is not powerful enough to power up the transporter room of the tier itself.
In conjunction with the other, because we've still got the other pieces of the pattern enhancer, because it's usually four of these things that they set up around something that they want to transfer.
The other two aren't damaged.
Okay, so we've got two.
Although
left.
that said, I believe I said something about modifying them to turn them into infrared things might be an irreversible modification.
True.
You did say that.
Kind of bugged.
That is a fair point. Yeah.
Okay, so hearing
There's no harm in looking, though.
Yeah.
While we're reading.
Yeah, if we find another complete set, we could use those. Anson, do you want to accompany Tenen and see if they have got anything like that still on board that we could use? And I'll see about trying to retrofit some fresh communication ability.
I'll be honest, Lieutenant Commander, my engineering skills are really not that great. I've been hanging out with Bonds for a while, but I've not really picked that much up off of him.
True, but your fetching skills should be good enough, shouldn't they?
I suppose, but I'm just wondering am I going to be able to recognise this is old technology, sir? I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at all the time.
That's why Tenen is going with you.
Indeed, rely on the experience of the years.
Oh, of course. And he kind of pulls himself together and looks over at Tenen, a little bit embarrassed, and says, are you finished with the meal? Should we go now?
When the man is ready, you will go. You can go with him.
Never rush a feasting Vulcan.
I am prepared now, Ensign. He stands up from the table. Jovar sort of goes to sort of help him up, and he raises a hand. Thank you, Jovar, but I believe I will be fine. He's not very quick, but he leads the way out of the bridge/dining room, communal area kind of thing.
Donnie kind of follows attentively, feeling kind of not necessarily like copying Jovar's attentiveness quite to that extent, but definitely keeping an eye like this guy could topple. It seems like Jovar's doing this for a reason.
He leads the way out of the sort of main sort of communal living area deck bit, back down the wooden staircase which you traversed earlier, onto the middle of the house. Is 3 levels. He doesn't seem to really be having a lot of trouble walking, I will say, but he is a bit slow. At the very least, a lot slower than Jovar was when he was leading you through the forest earlier. Tenen, he leads you through the corridors to a small storage room across the hall from a door which still bears a sign you can see that says transporter room. The storage room is quite dark, though. Looks like none of the lighting panels in here have been repaired. And Tenen turns to you. Ensign, do you have a light of any sort?
Aye, sir. And he pulls out a flashlight and starts shining it around, slowly scanning the surroundings.
Just Tenen will do fine, Ensign. It has been many years since ranks have held meaning for us here.
Okay, well let's look for some pattern enhancers. And Johnny's kind of taken aback because his dogmatism is very much tested by that kind of notion of like, just because you crashed, like we're here now. But he's not going to say that.
You think you'd see the Vulcan note your uncomfortableness at his words, but he doesn't say anything else to that. So, shining your torch around, you can see it's a little bit of a mess in here, but there's sort of crates sort of stacked against the walls and a couple of sort of lockers that have mostly come loose from the walls. You guess maybe in the original crash and they just never saw a reason to put them back together again. Can I get then an insight security check from you as you look for this equipment? Difficulty 1, I think. An 11 and a 3. All right, that's 2 successes. That's one more than you need, so mark some momentum. So, yeah, it takes you a little bit of time to go through it. The room, as I say, it's in a bit of a state there, but you managed to find a crate buried, actually, at the back underneath some other things. So you do have to... You put your back into it a little bit, again, sort of supervised by Tenen, who's just kind of watching you do all the heavy lifting. So, in a way, this place isn't that different to, this is a familiar feel of being your back-breaking labour being overseen by a lieutenant commander.
In life.
Yeah. You're able to unearth this crate and you open it, and Tenen says, I believe these will suffice. And the technology, it's a little different. It's definitely a little bit more kind of primitive looking than the ones that you carried with you. But these do appear to be earlier versions of pattern enhancers.
Okay. Johnny kind of gathers these up, and I guess they make their way back.
Okay. So while Johnny and Tenen went off on their search, what were the rest of you up to?
Well, I think I offered to make a start on trying to retrofit some communication equipment so we can get a message out to the Tenzing.
Okay, so William leads you across to what once looks to have been the bridge's communications console, and you can see that hooked into it, not like untidily, but clearly, not disturbed for some time, is a bit of a mess of wires and electronic components that have just been sort of set to one side by the looks of things.
Tenen was pretty sure we got this working, but range is limited, and as far as we could remember, the nearest Federation system is, it's light years away. We tried for a little while, but, it was always a long shot.
It appears to you to just be a kind of fairly basic, just regular radio. It's not a communicator. It's just what they've been able to cobble together using, regular radio electromagnetic waves. Not much better than a CB, basically.
Okay. The first thought that comes to Ray's head is, can he use circuitry from his comm badge, because it is slightly newer tech, potentially link that into the system and use that as a means of giving the radio a boost?
It would actually probably be the other way around. Like, you could maybe use the system that they've got built in as as an antenna for your comm badge would be the way to go on it, rather than, because we've already kind of established that your comm badges aren't cutting through the aren't powerful enough to cut through the interference on their own, sort of thing.
No, but if there's an antenna that we can bounce the signal off of,
well, more just kind of boost it through a bigger antenna, basically.
Okay, I'm willing to give that a go then.
Okay, this is going to be quite tough. So to
I think I've got a collaboration skill for engineering, but I think I need somebody else that actually knows engineering to help me with it.
Yes.
So this might
you do
go
have some
badly.
momentum to spend, but basically this is going to be a difficulty 3 reason engineering check.
We got 2 momentum, I think. It's confirmed earlier. So if I spend 1 to get another dice, the rest of the group okay with that?
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So this is going to be 3d20.
Okay, so you were going for reason engineering, so you were looking for 16 or under, so that is 3 successes with a 14, a 5, and a 5. So, yeah. Again, this takes you a little bit of time. Would it be safe to say Murphy looking over the shoulder a little bit after, because you'd already done some tinkering with the badge, could make this a little bit of a group effort, unless you wanted to be doing something else?
No, I'm happy to lend a hand.
Yeah, I was thinking back to you trying similar things with your badge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you need me to roll?
Well, no, I don't need you to roll anything. I just narratively, maybe you see what Ray is trying to do, and between the two of you, then you're able to just about wire in a combat. It's a little bit different because this is a kind of a bit of a homemade radio anyway. It's not a standard interface or anything really like that. But over the course of probably most of the time it takes Johnny to find the pattern enhancer. So I don't think I actually put a time on that, but let's say half an hour or so. You're finally able to kind of hook your badge in, and with some brief tests, you're able to. You think that it's all working together. You're not sure if you're going to be able to send your voice over it particularly well, but you're definitely going to be able to get a signal out through it.
Good job, Ray.
Let's see if it works.
Try and raise them.
Away party to Tenzing. Min, please. This is Lieutenant Commander Ray to USS Tenzing. Please respond.
You get back not a recognizable voice, but a bit of static that is definitely it picking something up. You think you hear it's like, when you hear like a static thing, it's like, I think it sounds like a person in there somewhere, but you're not making out any words or anything. It's just kind of like a sound sort of thing.
Right. Tenzing, we're getting static back through, but we can sort of detect voices. If you can hear us, keep the ship as clear from the ionosphere as you can. Repeat, move the ship away from the planet and keep it a safe distance. Storm system likely to cause problems with the ship.
Again, there's another pause, and then a slightly longer kind of noise that, again, you just kind of make it. You're not sure what the response is, but you definitely got another sort of staticky signal coming through that sounds like there's a voice in there somewhere, but you can't make out anything on it. So okay. I guess you can just kind of hope for the best at this point. But you're getting a return. You just can't make out anything out through it.
All right. I'll close off the message then, just with an extra update. We found survivors from a crashed Federation ship. When the storm front clears, we'll attempt communications again. I repeat, survivors found, 4 alive. We'll resume communications again after the storm has cleared, but keep the ship away from the planet's ionosphere. Ray out. Let's just hope they heard what we were trying to say.
The point is, the signal got through. They'll be able to analyze it, hopefully. Get at least most of what we said out.
Descramble the message and make it clearer, yeah.
Hopefully the storm will pass and we can get back to the ship.
You sound a bit homesick.
We can get a signal back out. I know. I don't really want to stay in a forest that has exploding pine cones.
Yeah, the absolute cheek of them all. Yeah. Murphy gives me a death stare.
Yeah. See if you weren't my friend.
Sounds like you picked a pretty choice place to beam down. Those paralyzing spines are no joke. Thankfully, the plants for those are mostly concentrated down in the valley. You just gotta be careful around them.
Oh, we noticed.
Yeah, Murphy definitely noticed.
I'm afraid that
hole in my cheek
aren't very good at being quiet.
Well, that's the trick. You learned a hard lesson the hard way by the sounds of things then.
Very
I won't make the same mistake again.
Although it should be said that our ensign was able to trick one of the animals into making loud enough noise to get itself stung by those things. Gave us a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah, that's one way of doing it. Sounds like your ensign's a sharp one.
Dr. Aurora, how about you? Anything you'd like to have been doing?
Not sure there's anything practical that the doctor could really be doing. So probably just quietly interacting with the other survivors and trying to settle any nerves that they probably have. Because even though they wanted to be found and to be rescued, it's still been a very long time.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shock, sort of.
And that's going to take, some time to actually sink in and have emotional reactions to.
That now of all times, that on the anniversary of their crash, that this should be the time that you, help arrived is a bit. Yes. So you continue talking with Sarah and William have sort of stayed, and Jovar have kind of stayed at the table together. And Jovar he's quite quiet the whole time, but you get the sense he's listening intently. This is all quite new to him. We're talking a little bit, and Sarah says, "If you don't mind me asking, Doctor, are you a Delton?"
Yes, I am.
My roommate at the academy was from Delta. I wonder whatever happened to them.
How long were you on board your ship before it crashed?
Not very long. Maybe 6 months. The Tier was my first assignment right out of Starfleet Academy. Small ship. I'd hoped it would be a short deployment before bigger things. Funny that. Didn't expect all of this, that's for sure.
No. That must have been quite a shock.
Yes, well.
And you will have had, I assume, no news from the outside. Nothing from off-world.
No, not a thing. As far as we know, your ship's the first to even visit this system since the Tier. Still, some good came out of all this. She clutches the hand of her husband and looks smiling at her son.
I'm glad you were able to find positives and joy, despite the surrounding.
Yes, it's been a journey, shall we say.
Once we're aboard the Tenzing, you are all welcome to come and talk to me if you need. At any point. That would be good, Doctor. Thank you. There's, as ever, so many things happen over the years. But all of that can wait. You don't need to worry about it just now.
It's funny, I haven't thought about them for so long, but I left my parents and sister back on Earth. I wonder what's become of them all. William squeezes her hand.
We'll get to find out, together.
Tenen's daughter as well. I'm sure he's anxious to see her again. I'm sure we'll have our hands full planning this family reunion. At this point, Johnny and Tenen sort of make their way back into the chamber. Johnny, you're kind of lugging these rather large case of old pattern enhancers with you.
Is this something you could drop on the table? Like in the box?
Probably best to just put it down next to it. It's a fairly... the pattern enhancers have gotten a bit more compact over the years, and a bit more foldable. These are a bit chunkier.
Okay, so he kind of... I mean, Johnny's quite fit, so he's not too worn out by it, but he puts it down. Yeah.
Oh, you're not struggling, but yeah, it's... Yeah.
Drops it down, goes over to the rest of the commanding officers near the radio and says, we've acquired some pattern enhancers. They look a little bit outdated, but they should do the job.
Good job, Ensign. Thank you, Tenen.
Vulcan just nods, inclines his head. A gesture that you're quite familiar with. It's you've worked with a few Vulcans over the years, and it's one that you've even seen the second in command of the Tenzing use herself. It's just it's the catch-all Vulcan, of course, sort of nod. Says a lot. Yeah. He doesn't really say anything. He just goes and sits back at the table.
We also managed to raise the ship, but we couldn't get a clear signal. But at least we got a signal. We relayed the information And that's all we can do for now.
Okay, well, I guess we're waiting out the storm. Anybody bring any cards?
Are you setting up the enhancers? What's the...
Yeah, I think that's the smart thing to do.
Yeah. Check they're okay.
Check they're okay, see if we can get them running. That way we're prepped for when we are able to attempt to beam out.
So, yeah, they appear to be mostly in working order. The onboard kind of power packs have died a little bit, but they do still all power up. You guess that's just kind of running down they've been sat in a cupboard for 30 years nearly. So, yeah, they're no Nokia 3210s, let's put it that way.
So if you drop them, they will break.
Yes. But yeah, no, you're able to power all three on.
Excellent.
So you set them up in an open area of the room and wait. 10 minutes pass. 20. And there's a shimmering in the air. A tricorder appears and falls to the floor.
Ah!
They must have come from the Tenzing.
It does. It's a modern style tricorder, much like the ones you're carrying.
Murphy picks up the tricorder.
Yeah, so flipping it open, there it does say there's a message has been recorded on it.
Press for the message.
You press play on the message, and it's the captain's voice.
Murphy, this is Captain Collins. We received a signal from the surface at your location some time ago, but we're unable to make much of it through the distortion. The Tenzing has encountered some anomalies in the vicinity of the planet, which were affecting our orbit. As such, we've moved away from the planet as a precautionary measure. From our viewpoint, that storm is showing no immediate signs of clearing, so do your best to sit tight for now. We'll re-enter transporter range in 12 hours' time and try to re-establish contact then. Good luck. Collins out.
Good.
At least they got the ship out of trouble.
For now.
You get the feeling from it that they'd realised earlier than the crew of the Tier did that something was wrong, and they've managed to get out of danger.
Yay,
So
first updated sensor.
You would imagine that they would avoid any further issue. So I think we can probably jump forward in time a little bit. You're able to make yourselves pretty well at home in the house. There's plenty of room. From the observation gallery, which would have been to the rear of the bridge when it was a ship, but is now a sort of nice lounge with wide windows looking back up the canyon the way you came when you approached. You're able to sort of watch the storm from safety as it still sort of rages overhead. More nice home-cooked meals are had, and it's generally a rather pleasant way to spend 12 hours. So yeah, the 12 hours pass, and then this time, not a tricorder, but a data pad appears within the little pattern enhancer circle that you've made with another message attached.
Murphy, this is Collins again. We're still detecting the anomalies in the planet's near orbital range, so we're keeping the Tenzing a safe distance still. They're dying down, though, and the science team predicts you should start seeing some clear skies in the next day or so. The engineers have been beavering away on a runabout to try and make it safe to fly down to you, so as soon as things clear a little, we'll send down a shuttle to pick you up. We've been trying to reach you on comms, but see if they're still spotty. Collins out.
So yeah, seems like rescue for everyone is pretty imminent.
I'd imagine that they'd want to have a drink and a night just to celebrate being able to leave. Is your last night on your planet? Planet?
Party!
I'd probably just getting them ready as well, and what things they want to bring.
Okay. Well, let's just say then, with the captain's vague prediction of clear skies in a day or so, you gradually help the survivors to get together the things that they want to bring with them. Now you know there'll be a runabout coming down. You're able to say that they don't have to be quite so picky. There's plenty of room. By and large, though, it's mostly kind of personal mementos and other small items, especially in the case of the older trio. Some of these are personal items that they even had with them back at the time of their original crash. It's a few bits of clothing each, but with the prospect of, being able to replicate fresh clothes and other basic items once you're on board the Tenzing, that does, seem to really cut down on the amount of packing a fair bit. Irila, your promise to Jovar that he'd be able to return someday if he wanted to has seemed to put his mind at rest, kind of in that regard, but he still packs up most of his stuff to bring with him, including his bow and the hooded all-weather cloak that he was wearing when you first met him. You do still sense a little bit of trepidation from him at the idea of leaving the planet, but I think that's kind of understandable, really. From the other three, a growing sense of anticipation and relief that their sort of odyssey here on Zhukir II is finally coming to an end. On the morning of the second day, William calls you over to the observation window, and you're treated to the first view of, admittedly through a gap in the still prodigious clouds, blue skies for the first time in days. Still very visible, even in daylight, shimmering sort of green tinge of the Aurora in the upper atmosphere, also still visible. In retrospect, the ground maybe wasn't the best place to view this particular sort of phenomenon of the Aurora.
I imagine the Tenzing would have captured better views.
Oh yeah, I mean, you guys got the short straw here. The best thing to be would have been on the ship.
On the observation deck.
Really, yeah, I'm sure Johnny's, Bond is getting a great view from the table. He and Johnny normally sit out and tend forward, kind of thing. A little more time passes then, and later that afternoon, the clouds have definitely started to clear. And keeping an eye out, you start to make out in the very distance. At first, it seems to just be kind of a moving dot of light, and as it comes closer, you can see that flying down from orbit is one of the Tenzing's 2 Danube-class runabouts, heading towards your position, and finally coming to a hover, and then a touchdown in the narrow valley, just outside the exterior airlock door of the remains of the USS Tyr.
Yay!
Survived another away mission, Connard. We survived.
Another perilous situation dodged. And we only got shot a couple of times.
I got paralysed.
Just turn the other cheek.
That's a terrible pun.
I know.
Terrible pun.
I know.
Pretty sure at that Arila's just rolling her eyes at them.
Murphy's rolling her eyes at it, going, oh.
Ray expects nothing less. Ray's been around a while. He knows all the bad puns.
Why are we friends, Ray? Why?
You'll be asking yourself that until the day you die, Murphy.
I hate you.
No, you don't.
No, I don't.
Jovar's just looking at the two of you like, what, do you hate each other? Are you two enemies? Like...
No.
So...
It's just a shit stir.
Federation shitstir is supreme.
So everybody boards the runabout. You can see Ensign Sauce is at the controls, and he, as you get into the runabout, he says, Commanders, Johnny, and new people, welcome aboard. Let's hope
Please don't crash this time.
I was gonna say, I've gotten better, Commander. Look, I've only crashed once, and you didn't even get hurt. It was fine.
I'm just going to glare at him. It's really, I want off this rock.
Sure. Okay, yeah. Everybody on board?
Yep. Johnny comes in and takes the seat next to Sauce up at the front of the runabout.
Gives you it gives you a sort of like sup kind of nod.
Yeah, and Johnny gives him like a little nod of acknowledgement, trying to convey yeah, we did it, we're back.
So the runabout takes off. You get your first good look from the air of the crash site of the USS Tyr. Again, it looks like the upper part of the ship basically is embedded in the earth of the planet. You can see some distance off that the warp nacelle that you walked past earlier. As Sauce circles the runabout around, you can see another one off to one side. But that's about all that's left of that ship. Rising up through the atmosphere, most of the sort of storm clouds are beginning to clear a little bit now, and the Aurora is still there, and but thankfully dealt with quite neatly by the runabout's shielding, and you're treated to a very nice bright view of the planet, completely wreathed in this green ionizing glow of the solar solar maximum storm. Finally, Sauce turns to you and says, "So yeah, we've had quite a lot of excitement up here. It's like I would have been better going with you guys. Ship nearly fell out of the sky."
We've been shot at by the native wildlife. This guy over here, and he sort of nods over to Jovar and says, "This guy, he flat out killed this thing that was jumping at me. Well, I guess it was jumping at all of us, but yeah, pretty action-packed time down there."
Huh. Well. Still.
Connor got a good shot on one of the creatures, though.
Yeah, you've been practicing.
I have got a pretty good throwing arm, and it gives it like the kind of wrenching, like wheels his arm around.
Yeah, but then he shot one of the pattern buffers, and well, that made up for it.
And the wheeling arm kind of slowly slows down and comes down to his side. And
But overall, Connor did a good job.
He did. He did.
I think
Thank
he
you.
deserves I think he deserves a nickname. How about Johnny Two Phases?
No.
Oh.
Johnny's smiling at this, just enjoying the moment.
So, Arila, you're getting from the family and Tanen as it's lifting out. You're picking up emotional sort of feelings from the again, sort of just a wonder and like kind of like what is going on from Jovar kind of thing. Again, not I keep making it out like he's like confused and doesn't know what's happening. It's more just like this is completely out of his realm of, you know, he never thought he'd be leaving the planet, and all of a sudden he's on a spaceship and he's leaving the atmosphere and everything, and it's like, this is crazy sort of thing.
His mind is blown.
Yeah, and just a huge amount of relief from the others. Well, from the humans at least. Tanen is a bit more reserved and he's not really showing any emotion on his face at all, but you're getting a sort of a subtle kind of feeling of relief from him, you know, which is about as much as you ever get from Vulcans, really. A kind of
Yeah, I imagine Rila's quite used to that.
yeah, a kind of tight control over their emotions sort of thing. Like even after all this time, he still maintained his composure. Sauce guides the runabouts up to the ship, which again, it seems to be in a little, it's tough to gauge from inside, but you seem to be still in a bit of a higher orbit than you were when you beamed down, but without incident. And you come to a landing on the main hangar deck. Waiting for you outside is the captain and the commander. As you step out, Captain gives you each of you a nod. Good job, all of you. Welcome back.
Thanks.
And as the family disembarks from the runabout, he steps forward to greet them. I'm Captain Collins. Welcome aboard the USS Tenzing. I gather it's been some time for all of you. Allow me to welcome you back to the Federation. William shakes his hand.
Thank you, Captain. I'll be honest, we'd mostly given up hope on being rescued. Well, other than Tanen, that is. Your crew arriving came as something of a surprise. A welcome one, I might add. It's good to be back.
Collins gestures towards the turbolifts.
We've prepared guest quarters for all of you. This way?
He begins to lead the family away from the runabout towards the lifts. And it's then that you notice that Tanen isn't really following. He sort of stood hanging back a little bit. It's at this point that the ship's second in command, Talin, takes a step forward. Welcome aboard, Father.
Oh!
Alright, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time on January 6th for the next chapter of Frontier, and we hope you'll all join us for that. In the meantime, you can find links to all of our social media, our Discord server, our Ko-Fi page, and podcast feeds in one place, and that's pretendingwithdice.com. Have a great holiday and a great New Year's. We'll see you in 2022.